Hello. We'll just wait a few minutes to get people on. But for those of you who don't know, I'm Michelle at Old Town Quilt Shop. And we are doing our Wednesday live program. And today we are out in the clubhouse because, ta-da, we have internet out here now. So hopefully everything works as well as it did in the shop. And we'll see. Tonight we're doing a demo. Do we have people on? Okay. All right, we're going to do a demo of putting your binding on by machine. Because for those of you who know Stacy and I, you know that we don't do hand sewing. Part of it is I don't enjoy doing hand sewing, and the other part is that it's Stacy and I who do 90% of the shop samples, and we simply don't have time to hand sew the binding on, even if we loved doing it. So, so for those of you who want to learn how to do, see a little demo on machine binding, I'm going to show you two different ways. And even if you love to hand sew, probably for placemats or table runners, this would be the way to go. Or even, you know, I would especially do it on baby quilts that are going to get used a lot. But, you know, of course, it's a personal preference, and I know not everybody likes, you know, the look of a machine sewn binding, but we'll demo it and you can choose to do it or not. Okay. Today, before we get started, this is all we've gotten in this week. You know, the whole supply chain is messed up due to the pandemic and the storms. So we're not getting much in. It's all going to just arrive at our door. We're going to have an avalanche of fabric at some point, but it's not today. So what we got in this past week is this a batik from Moda. It's in the Malibu line. This one's called Fern. So it's a, you know, a nice light green with some fern design on it. So that's it for new fabric. The other thing that we got is this book called Beyond the Tee. And we get a lot of questions from people about t-shirt quilts. And, you know, we got one of these and decided we really liked it, so we have ordered a number of copies of this book. It's available on our website and in the store. It retails for $24.95. Our books are always 30% off. On the website, you do need to put in the coupon code BOOK30, BOOK30. So anyway, one of the reasons we liked this book is because it explains how to do that, how to prepare whatever. It doesn't even have to be a t-shirt, you know, whatever clothing you're using to do a memory type quilt. It tells you what to use as the interfacing, you know, how to prepare it. And it also has a number of different layouts for quilts so that it's not just blocks of pieces cut out of a t-shirt. So it really is a nice book for the price. So if there's, you know, a memory type quilt that you want to do, this is a good book to get. I think there was one in the back that Stacy particularly liked, this one. Just little pieces. It just makes a small one from scraps of, you know, kids' clothes or, you know, whatever. But anyway, this is a new book, and it is available, like I said, in the store or online. And it is called Beyond the Tee. And you can look it up under books on the thing. Okay, so that is it for our new products this week. Again, you know, the whole supply chain is messed up. Okay, so what we're going to go over today is machine quilting, or machine binding. And what I did a couple of little samples. I'm just going to do two different ways. Of course, you know, with everything, there's a million different ways that you can do things, and this is how I do them. Okay, this particular batting is Dream Angel. So it's maybe just a tiny bit thicker than the Cotton Request. But one of the reasons I wanted to show you this was because you might want to do a little sample before you do one, because it does make a difference, your binding, your batting, how big you cut your binding. So this particular one, you know, I just took an end off the little sample that we're going to do, and I cut a 2-inch binding. And this is the front of the quilt, and this is the back. So I attached it first to the which one did I do on this one? Oh, I attached it to the back of the quilt, and then I brought it around to the front and top stitched it. So with a 2-inch binding, then that's going to give you just that small binding on the front. Sometimes if you cut a bigger binding, when you bring it around to the front, you're going to have a wider, you know, it's going to be a little wider on the front. That's fine if that's what you like. If that's not the look that you like, then you want to test it and see, you know, see how that works out. Now this is a 2 1/4 inch binding, and I sewed this one to the front and brought it around to the back, and then I stitched in the ditch on the front, and then this is what you get on the back. So you have this extra flap, but I want it a little bit, when you're doing this, you do want it a little bit bigger, because otherwise you may not catch the whole thing. Okay, so that was why on this one I made a 2 1/4 inch binding. Now if you had done this the other way and this is the front, then you're going to have this bigger side on the front.
Hi, Gigi.
Okay.
Hi to Roxanne.
Oh. Hi, Roxanne. Okay. So what I've done is put some of this binding on. And what I'm going to show you is how to bring it around. So this is the front of this sample quilt. Now this is the way that I normally do it. So I sew it onto the front, and then I bring it around to the back. So
No, you don't. No.
no.
It's the opposite.
Oh, this is the opposite. This is how you would do it. This isn't a real quilt, so I'm getting mixed up. Okay, this is the way I don't normally do it. All right. Oh, see what happens when you go live.
Hi, TV folks.
Okay. Oh, my clips. Let me just grab my clips. Okay. All right, so I have sewn it on the front. So what we're going to get is this look, you know, where you stitch in the ditch on the top. Okay, so I've sewn it to the front, and I'm going to bring it around to the back. And I do clip it. And I'm not going to sew a whole lot of this, but I'll sew some of it. And then on the next one, I'm going to show you how to actually do the mitered corner. But I just want to show you this. Okay, so you're going to have this back here, and you're going to be stitching in the ditch. So what you want to be sure is that this comes over far enough. Here's your original line of stitching. It's got to come over that, because you're going to be stitching in that ditch. Okay, so let's. Oh. And of course, again, it's live, and I didn't bring the foot that I usually use. So we'll see how this goes. All right, so we're going to stitch it in the ditch here. Okay. So I'm going to be right there. Move it over just a tiny bit. I want to be right there in that ditch. And I got to find my foot.
Attached to your leg.
The one that's not attached. Okay. All right. So we're just going to stitch right there in that ditch. And I don't go real, you know, even for real, I don't go very fast, because it's hard to stay in that ditch. And I won't bore you with miles of this. We'll just cut it off there. But that is what I would do all the way around. Okay, so on the front, you know, it looks like a regular one, but the back is where you're going to see this. And you can see it comes pretty close here on the back. And that's why you want to be sure that you have got that all the way around. One of the reasons that I don't normally do it this way is because it's easy to miss some of this and then you've got to go back and fix it. So although this gives you more the look of when you hand sew, at least from the front, it's tricky to always get that on there correctly. So, you know, you could do my favorite thing and glue it. However, that's time consuming, so it kind of defeats the purpose of doing the machine binding. Okay. So now, this is the way that I do normally do it. But what I'm going to show you, so I would sew it on the back and bring it around to the front and then top stitch it. But what I'm going to show you first, because I've had a number of people ask, how do you do the mitered corners? So I'm going to show you how I do it. Again, there are people do it differently, and this is my way, so there's no one correct way. Everybody figures out the best way to do it themselves. Let me just make sure that's on there. Okay, so you're sewing a you've got your 1/4 inch seam, so you're sewing this, and you've got your binding, the rest of your binding hanging out there. So, and I'll backspace here, although it doesn't really,
Why do you say that?
I don't know. I keep saying backspace for backstitch. And Stacy corrects me. Okay, so we're gonna sew, and you're gonna stop a 1/4 inch away. So what I do so that I know where that is I just kind of make this crease here on this so that I know where it ends. And my foot has this little marking here that's a 1/4 inch. You know, again, you have to know your machine and know your feet, and you could always just mark it. So then I just go there, I back stitch there, and then you take it off. Okay, so now you have stitched up to a 1/4 inch. So now you have this piece like this. You're going to lay it like this because now you're going to come down this way. You're going to just fold this up at a 45-degree angle. It's going to meet right there. Now some people do sew off. They stop here and they sew off. I can't always see the correct spot to sew off, so I don't do that. But that's another way that you can do it. So you fold that up, and you want this to look like that so that it's in a straight line with the rest of your quilt. And then you just bring this down, and this is going to create your mitered corner. And I just put a little clip there, and then you just sew that down. So where are my threads? Yeah, the other one doesn't want to come over. Come on, thread. All right, so I just start and then I just back up. I back stitch, although really I backspace. And then you're just going to sew that on the same way you always would. Okay, so that's what you do when you get to the corners. That's how you handle the mitered corners. Okay, so this one is the one where we sewed it onto the back of the quilt. So we're going to bring it around to the front. So when you bring it around to the front, again, you are going to get rid of all these threads that are just hanging out here. Okay, so you're going to bring it around, and again, I'm going to clip, and I'm going to show you how to do the corner as well. So you've got this part. Usually I will clip either side of the corner, and then, and you may have to just fuss with this a little bit till you get it exactly right. But you just fold it down, and you try to get those to meet there. And then I put a clip there. Sorry, that was my arm. Okay, so what I'll do is, I'll just start right there. And so we'll top stitch, but I have to use the foot that I don't like, but because I didn't bring the right one. But it's live, so the show must go on. Okay, so what we're going to do is top stitch, and what you want to do is stitch as close to that edge there as you can. And we will figure out where we are, because this is not a foot I'm used to.
Before you start, I'm going to get in there.
All right. Okay. All right, so you start, and I don't usually backspace because when I come all the way back around, I will just sew over that. I think if you sew over it, it's less bulky than back stitching. Do I keep saying space?
I just keep laughing at you.
Okay. All right, and then I just go right beyond that, and then I just back up one stitch. And you want to have your needle down. So if you have needle down position, if you don't, you'll have to rotate your wheel. And then you're just going to go forward on the next part. So again, the idea is to stitch, you want to top stitch as close to the edge as you can. And I think that gives a little better look. So I'll do a little more. We won't stitch forever here. But just so you get the idea. Okay. So so this is what it looks like when you stitch it to the back first and bring it around to the front. All right. And then the other look is this one where we stitched it to the front, brought it around to the back, and stitched in the ditch from the front. And again, this one, is just a little trickier only because you want to be sure that you catch that. You can't see it. When you bring it around to the front, you're top stitching it so you can see it. Okay, did we have any questions about that?
No, they liked it. Jeff says this is perfect. Tracy and I were just doing this together.
Yes.
Joe Martin says this is great.
Good, yeah, because I know there's a lot of people who love to hand sew, and good for you. I'm happy for you. I'm not one of you, and I need to get these done, so this gets it done a little faster. But I would practice. I mean, even just little pieces like this, help. And like I said, I would, I cut my binding different widths depending on what the batting is and what, if there's a whole lot of quilting, it's less puffy, so I want a smaller one. Again, I do try to test it out on something extremely similar to what I did, and definitely the same batting. So I do test it out to see what width of binding that I want to cut. And of course, the binding tool works for any width. And the folded corner clipper, sometimes I cut mine 2 1/8. I just make an 1/8 inch mark on that one, and it works just fine. So anyway, that's that's 2 ways to do machine binding. You can also do a flange binding, which is similar to the one where we stitched in the ditch on the front. You'd be stitching in the ditch on that flange. So again, that would allow you to put it on by machine. But these are the 2 ways, and really the one that I use all the time is the one where you stitch it to the back, bring it to the front, and top stitch it.
So can you show that?
Which one?
You just did. The way we normally do it.
The way we normally do it,
He
yes.
wants to see the back. Jeff wants to see the back.
Okay.
So Jeff, this is the back. So you do get a
So you do
line.
get a stitching line, but I don't worry about it. My stuff's not going in a show. I don't care. So if that bothers you, then you would want to do it the other way. But like I said, do it cautiously. You have to do it slowly because you want to be sure that you are catching all of that underneath. Because how do I know that? Because that's how I did it the first few times, and I had to go back and redo portions of it because I didn't catch it all. So there's pluses and minuses to both ways, and you just have to figure out what works for you. Okay,
Show
so
off your great quilting.
oh yes, so this quilt behind us, Stacy pieced it. It's called Pacific, and I quilted it on the long arm, and Stacy got what she paid for with the quilting.
You did great.
Anyway, this is a huge quilt. We do have the fabrics here, and we do have a kit if you want it. And the pattern is actually a free download, but we have the patterns printed for a nominal fee, a few dollars. $5. So we do have a copy of the printed pattern if you need that. Otherwise, we can give you the link to the free pattern. But it's a beautiful quilt.
And machine binding.
And the fabric, yes, and it was machine bound.
Machine bound.
As everything in here that either Stacy or I did is machine bound. Although I think we have one quilt where I screwed up and put the binding on the wrong side, and then I had to hand sew it down. Anyway, that's I guess that's our show for tonight. So if there's any questions, any comments, nope.
No.
Okay, we will. We're waiting to hear from the people who are already signed up for the retreat that was scheduled in March, and so there will be a few openings. I don't know how many, but we are going to be doing another virtual retreat. Our virtual retreat went well, thanks to the help of some people, but now that we have internet out here in the classroom, we'll be able to do it ourselves. So yay. So it's March, it's that first weekend in March.
First weekend of March, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Yeah, so
6, 7, 8.
yeah, so anyway, the first weekend in March, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, the cost will be $35, and you get a goodie bag, and we do demos, and there's, we do happy hour. Of course, we're not providing the drinks because you're at home, but you can drink whatever you want. And one of the things people loved about it was they didn't have to drag their sewing machine. They got to see everybody and sew with us, but they just did it at home and sometimes in their jammies. So anyway, if you're interested in the retreat, let us know, but we'll be sending out more information once we hear from the people who are already scheduled to be in it.
Yeah, don't go looking for it right now.
Right, don't look to sign up yet, but keep it in mind, keep that weekend in mind, because you may be able to sew with us. All right, so that's it. Okay, thank you all.